Slow burn romance is a term I'm sure you may have heard at least once if you're at all familiar with romance. The basic idea is that these are romances where the characters gradually fall in love with each other over a presumed slow amount of time. This is admittedly a pretty loose definition, meaning that what qualifies as such can be very loose. I largely see people call the guy she was interested in wasn't a guy at all a slow burn, as it felt like it took a while for the two to become a couple. At a certain point, I think people were very much ready for the two to admit their feelings for each other and officially be a thing, creating a wave of excitement when it finally happened. This can be considered the basic template for what a slow burn is like. If we want to bring up a slow burn I adore, there's The Moon on a Rainy Night, though rather than a gradual realization of feelings for both parties, the story begins with one quickly developing immediate feelings for the other, adding this layer of yearning and repression that builds over the course of the story, as the other lead goes through the more typical kind of realization of feelings. I'm pretty sure Blooming to You can also be called a slow burn, though it takes a far more intimate approach as many different feelings are laid bare early on, but Yu's feelings towards Toko are a slow-going process that she takes time to understand. You may have noticed that my latter two examples kind of bend the rules about what defines a slow burn, and one of the main leads already knows their attraction early on, which ties back to slow burn having a loose set of rules. If you want my own opinion on what slow burn is, it's less about the specific narrative details, and more about the emotions conveyed as you engage in the slow journey of the main characters. A romance where you would want to see them become a couple, but you're also comfortable with watching the smallest moments the two share with each other, and the satisfaction that comes from simply that. And if there's one Yuri manga I've read that perfectly encapsulates what I've described, it would be a little series called Bluer Than Love. On the surface, Bluer Than Love, or A Love Yet to Bloom, appears to be pretty simple as far as romances go. Two high school girls happen to meet each other on the train and slowly grow close to one another, sharing a relationship and emotions they don't quite have with others. It may not sound groundbreaking, but each time I saw someone post a page from this manga online, something about it always caught my eye. Maybe it was because of how pretty the art was, but I couldn't help but become interested, and once I finally checked it out, something about it clicked with me so much stronger than many other romances I read. That's not to say it wipes the floor with every other Yuri or anything, but it was doing things that made this very simple concept that has been done so many times before feel like this incredibly special experience. And that's what I want to focus on today. Why Bluer Than Love has become one of my favorite slow burn Yuri. If you have at all observed what I do on this channel, it becomes clear that I tend to be strongly passionate about whatever I talk about. It basically comes with the motivation to make a video, and many of us have this feeling in our own way. Hobbies and interests that keep us going and act as motivation through whatever life we're living. This is a very general concept that many may understand, but this is important to establish, as the protagonist of Bluer Than Love, Tsukasa Takemin, lacks this type of passion when we meet her. After recently quitting her school's volleyball club, she doesn't exactly have much to do outside of school anymore. The world around her is full of people brimming with energy and excitement, talking to each other with youth expected of high school, but all Takemin feels is boredom as she reads this book she randomly decided to pick up. I don't think how bad the book is would really change her ambivalence towards it. Without that interest to engage with what's being read, she's just going through the motions, which can be said about her life in general. I don't mean to make it sound like she's incredibly depressed or anything, but I find it interesting to see her protagonist as someone with very little drive, someone who doesn't know what it means to like something just for the sake of liking it. But this all takes a turn when she ends up swapping copies of the book she was reading with a random girl on the train. With how bored Takemin was whenever she tried reading, it came as quite a shock to see that this girl, Shiori Sakura, is a massive fan of it. She can so effortlessly explain what she loves about the story in a way that honestly puts me to shame. While it's arguable whether Takemin fully comprehended or even agreed with much of Sakura's fangirling, one thing became clear, and it's that this girl cares a lot about this book, and this is enough to get Takemin to finish reading it. Their conversations together acted as the spark she needed to get interested in this hobby, and thus, a connection is formed between these two girls who happen to take the same train. This is the only connection the two have in each other's lives, yet they are excited to see each other again. One of the smartest choices that Bluer Than Love makes with its premise is how, unlike most other high school romances I've seen, where the main two go to the same school or have different schools so close to each other, it's almost negligible, Takemin and Sakura go to completely different schools, so far apart that they're only able to normally see each other during their commutes home. This ends up having multiple fascinating impacts on their dynamic. The first and most obvious is how the time they spend together each day is initially very limited. With just these small moments together, They try to get the most out of it without feeling like they're asking too much of the other person. Some of the most interesting parts of the manga can ironically be when the two are not together, and they realize how much the other lives inside their brain. Particularly from Sakura, there's this gentle sense of yearning to see the other person simply because they like being with one another. And this leads to the second impact their ability to meet has on their dynamic, and it's, well, the relationship itself. Takemin and Sakura's conversations are filled with this unique sense of honesty the two only ever offer to each other. Because their budding relationship is so separate from everything else in their lives, spawning from this liminal part of their everyday life, the two find it so easy to talk about themselves and open up. As early as the second chapter, Sakura has no problem talking about how her literature club disbanding has made her lonely now that she has nobody to talk about books with. But Takemin being so willing to talk to her about them has made her really happy, and she just finds it really fun. It's such an open display of emotions that Takemin recognizes, and thus, has no problem reciprocating by openly saying that she's happy to listen to whatever she says, and that she also likes talking with her, accompanied by a small grab of her hand that affirms it's better than words ever could. The two exist as unique pieces of the rest of their social lives, and conversations between them come so naturally. Takemin's calm and straightforward personality is a lovely complement to Sakura's kind and sincere attitude. The two connect with each other so well, it's like they're magnets that can't help but stick together, regardless of the scenario. Sakura loves talking about what interests her, but she always tries her best to be modest about it so as to not overwhelm Takemin, and in return, Takemin is always looking after Sakura and making sure she's comfortable, at times having this warm, prince-like quality to the kind gesture she gives to Sakura. The warmth she can give this little glasses girl can be so sweet, such as when she was having second thoughts about watching a movie with her due to hearing some bad word of mouth, but Takemin reassures her that regardless of if it's bad, it'll be fun since this is something they're doing together. The way Takemin says such heartwarming things like this with next to no issue, while often carrying a nonchalant demeanor, is a pretty adorable combination that leaves Sakura's head swirling as she continues to fall for this handsome girl. The two have their awkward moments together, but it's all in their efforts to have their various feelings reach each other. There are times where moments between them can range from these pages, filled with speech bubbles that get you absorbed in their conversations, and there are just as many times where only a few words are spoken as they share this moment of quietness together. This is a pairing that simply enjoys the act of existing with one another, and it's that mundane but sincere dynamic that has kept me glued to the pages as I read what scene they share next. Trust me, I adore Yuri that's filled with insane levels of drama and tension, and I also have a lovely time with Yuri injected with heaps of comedy, but the gentle affection of what Takemin and Sakura have has captivated me in a way that's unique from every other Yuri I've read, despite how basic they may seem on paper. The relationship is not simply defined by friendship the same way they're friends with everybody else, but they're also not dating currently. They're people whose presence lifts each other up and makes their world brighter, and that to me is very much Yuri. But speaking of friendship, a big element of Bluer Than Love are Takemin's three friends, Hinata, Hattori, and Hirose, who are all other main characters of the series. This manga presents a neat social dynamic, where Takemin and her three friends from school are their own group, but Takemin and Sakura are also their own duo, so when they're all together, they function as one group, but understand that Sakura is closest to Takemin and keeps this in mind whenever appropriate. Hinata is the loud one of the group. Despite not having any apparent interests or specific passion she engages with, she is the most enthusiastic girl among them. She always finds ways to get excited even in the most mundane of scenarios, and her occasional lack of tact is balanced out by her clear love for her friends and care for those around her. The immediate fondness she has for Sakura is free of any awkwardness, as she quickly recognizes the sweet girl she is. Unlike every other character, there's a sense that Hinata is content with who she is, and she's able to shine like the sun to those around her. Being with them and seeing them be their amazing selves is more than enough for her. She's the kind of friend you would love to have around whenever you need a positive vibe. Hattori is the kind of friend many would love to have, but in a different way. While Hinata is the most excitable, Hattori is the most detached girl in the group. She's a very nice person and is very supportive of her friends, but does not emotionally involve herself while remaining mindful of their own desires and levels of comfort. As a result, she is the least passionate of the group and doesn't have any interests she holds onto strongly, stemming from the belief that it's better to not involve yourself so deeply due to emotional devastations that could bring. It's a flawed but relatable way of thinking that greatly humanizes Hattori, making the strong friendship she has with others become more significant, as it is ultimately the way she'll chip away at the shield she put around herself. Whether she wants it or not, her friends are keeping an eye on her, reaffirming her place in this tightly knit group. Finally, there's arguably the most significant character besides Takumin and Sakura, Hirose. While I've highlighted you'd want the others as friends, I think Hirose is a character that many would relate to specifically. She has an interest of her own, and that's volleyball. She takes it pretty seriously as it's something she likes a lot, clearly, but she also wanted someone to share that enthusiasm with, someone she likes a lot, that person being Takumin. As such, she invited her to join the volleyball club with her. After all, wanting someone to like the things that you like is an understandable feeling. It's an avenue to connect with that person as well as get more out of your own passions, pushing your love for both in new and exciting ways. Although in Hirose's case, it didn't go how she expected nor wanted. As a result of messy drama going on in the volleyball club, coinciding with Hirose's conflicted feelings with how Takumin's presence fit into that, Takumin ended up quitting the team, and Hirose has felt guilty to have gotten Takumin into something that didn't go well for her. It's an embarrassing and awkward kind of guilt that can muddy up the relationship one has with what they like. Hirose is the most socially aware character in the story. She's able to pick up on traits her friends have and how they interact with others, such as how she easily reads Hattori's habit to stay disconnected, or how she can describe to Sakura how much of an effect she's had on Takumi since meeting her. She thinks a lot about others, yet tries to not meddle or get involved. Hirose is similar to Hattori in this regard, yet she still can't help but get emotionally connected to the lives of her friends. She's had trouble fighting the sense of envy she feels from Takumin and Sakura's growing relationship, and can have a difficult time sorting out her own feelings. Telling herself she doesn't care only leads to bumming herself out, when that leads to a greater sense of detachment she wouldn't have felt otherwise. But it's important to note how all her friends care for her just as much. Even Takumin, after that whole volleyball situation went poorly, holds nothing against Hirose, and thanks her for wanting to involve her in something that she cares so deeply about. It's such a small moment of gratitude, yet one that is so emotionally validating for Hirose, a person who knows that liking something without any insecurity does not come easy. I love all these characters individually, but it's when they're all put together that Bluer Than Love really shines. The four friends speak to each other in a very casual manner, as they've known each other for a while, and have grown fully accustomed to each other's presence. Aside from Hinata being the loud girl she is, the energy of the group is overall pretty mellow. There's no big drama strongly coursing through these friends in their day-to-day lives. Even Hirose's conflict regarding Takumin is largely something she grapples with in her own head, and her friends are supportive of her when they're aware she's feeling down. I can imagine this reserved sense of drama could be seen as boring to some, but I think it's very sweet to see a friend group constantly be able to affirm that they care for one another, not by outright saying it all the time, but seeing it through their actions, and the carefully written conversations they have with each other. It's all about those little moments that add up to make these friends believable and engaging to read, and what further sells this is how well the art complements that. There aren't many ways I could describe what I love about Bluer Than Love's art, but if I could use one word, it would be vividness. Backgrounds are often kept simple, and when the setting doesn't need to be established, it's not afraid to let the characters live in these white spaces where nothing else exists besides them. The designs of all our main characters aren't breaking any new ground, but it's the clear details given to each of them that makes them so memorable. At face value, Hirose and Hinata's designs would be too identical when considering their hairstyles are so similar, and there's nothing that drastic to separate them. But the difference in eyes and expression range, the subtle gradients on Hirose's hair, Hinata's hair clip, and her rounder visual language still make it very easy to identify who is who, even in the smallest of panels. Takumin's long black hair makes her stick out wonderfully as a protagonist in a manga surrounded by light-haired characters with much shorter hair. It goes a long way to making her presence more significant in each page, and there are similar things that can be said with Sakura. Her unique school uniform and gentler expressions would already be enough to differentiate her, but what I love most about her design is her glasses, which only seem to amplify the shine in her eyes and make her more adorable than she already is. As a matter of fact, the eyes do so much of the talking for the whole cast. They are the most detailed part of each character, and the subtlest changes in them is enough to tell you how a character is feeling in that moment. There's an innate prettiness to how everyone is drawn that gives Bluer Than Love this glow I found so appealing to look at. It's got a style that perfectly suits the tone of its writing, and I never grow tired of looking at it. It all especially comes together during the most pivotal moments of Takumin and Sakura's relationship, where simple and honest words are tidal waves of emotion that the two let flow through their minds. A moment that sticks with me in this is when Takumin realizes that their time together on these train rides won't last forever. It won't be immediate, but their lives will eventually change from this serene status quo. And that's a little sad to think about. The significance of these words soon wash over her as she realizes how invested she's become in her time with Sakura. Even something as simple as Sakura rooting for Takemin in her school play is filled with this whimsical glow and slow pace that lets you see how much life the two give to each other. The world isn't changing, and the relationship may not immediately shift, but these small moments are turned into something truly special, and that's what I believe is the reason slow burn works so well. It is understandable to be like Hatori and Hirose, who want these two to push along with their feelings and try to prevent them from becoming stagnant, but these two are growing closer at their own pace. We are currently 4 volumes in, and the two have yet to become a couple, and while there are signs we may finally be approaching that point, I won't mind how long it takes. We could get another 4 volumes of all these characters simply living their lives and continuing to share memories, and I know I wouldn't complain. But within all of this Yuri that makes me scream into my pillow or take way more screenshots than I really need to for this video, I hope by now how clear it is that this manga has something to say. A highlight of this entire story comes from when Takemin explains her own side of quitting the volleyball team, realizing she didn't have the same passion as everyone else, and feeling guilty that she was taking space away from those who wanted to succeed way more than she did. Takemin describes herself as empty, envious of how people like Sakura and Hirose have something that motivates them compared to how aimless her own life is. However, Sakura refutes this by admiring Takemin's ability to try things that don't interest her. It's easy for someone to stick to their own interests, but the act of stepping outside your comfort zone in search of more has meaning in of itself. Even if you didn't end up invested the same way as someone you know, the fact that you wanted to engage yourself with what others loved is still a notable effort born out of motivation and enthusiasm. The fact that this is how she met Sakura is proof that there is more to Takemin than emptiness, and as long as she keeps searching, her life will only continue to find that something that'll make her shine the way that she sees others. Over the course of the story, this has only been further proved to be true. She's read more books, she became an actor for a play during the cultural festival, on top of already working hard for her class's project. She's gone out with friends, become more vocally supportive of them, and has taken an interest in writing, a concept foreign to the Takemin we originally met at the beginning of the story. These aren't life-changing decisions on their own, but bit by bit, you can see how much more fulfilling Takemin finds her day-to-day life, and it was all through her own efforts. Takemin may come across as passive, but that willingness to take on unknown experiences is her greatest strength. Bluer Than Love understands that loving something can be a slow process. Everyone experiences passion and excitement differently, and everyone should be allowed a place to belong as they discover who they are. The effort is what matters most, and watching that love bloom into something more is what ultimately makes it so meaningful. This is all what makes Bluer Than Love my favorite Yuri that I've read all year, and one of my favorite slow burn romances that I've encountered. Maybe everything I've talked about is completely against your own definition of slow burn, and some other series better defines it than what I found here. If that's the case, feel free to share what that series is. Like Sakura, I'm merely here to ramble about a story that I really loved. Also, Takemin with short hair looks lovely, which is a comment I didn't know how to fit into the video, so I'm saying it here because I think that's important. Okay, goodbye. Well, that seems like a good place to call it. If you enjoyed this video, subscribing and liking are all good and fun, but I also have a couple other videos on Yuri manga that you can check out here. I've been making quite a few of those at this point, and I like to think that I have at least some variety to offer now. With all of that said, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.